Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Stephanie. I'm so pleased to be here with Jackie today on Shame to Shine. Jackie is a mental fitness coach and career strategist. And so we are here to get a flavor of how Shame to Shine can move from some external sources of job loss and how that may turn into, in Jackie's case, a whole new career direction that is focused in and grounded in her own experience and helping others. So, really excited that Jackie is here. Thank you for joining. And we're going to jump right in. Jackie, will you share a little bit about what your initial shame experience is that you want to share with this group?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Steph. This is such a joy to talk about this very difficult thing. But it's really great to have an opportunity to share this because I think it's important that we share our experiences with one another. So my moment of shame came when I was laid off from my last full-time job. And the thing that I find interesting about this experience is that it wasn't the getting laid off that I felt ashamed about because let's be honest, it's not an uncommon occurrence nowadays. It's just something that we all experience. It's a thing that has nothing to do with who we are as workers or as contributors, and has everything to do with the people making decisions that are higher up in a company. And because it's more prevalent, I think some of the stigma around that has been, demystified. So in my case, when I got the notice that I had been laid off, and this is a job that I had had for several years at that point, I had an oh crap moment where initially I was like, what am I going to do? My first thought was panic, and it's like, oh, I got to polish my resume, I got to find a new job, I got to do whatever, and I started to go through all of the to-dos because I'm an achiever, I'm a doer. That's how my brain works. And there was a softer voice that goes, oh, maybe it's time to go all in on your business.
Mm.
And that gave me pause. My to-do brain was like, well, wait, what? Wait a second. And I leaned into that and I stepped back. And what came up in that moment was, I had been working on my coaching business for almost the entire time I'd been in that job. It started as a side passion project and had been my side hustle for several years at that point. And I realized that this was an opportunity for me to choose, if I wanted to go all in on it, as I had been talking about for well over a year at that point, and dragging my feet on, to be honest, or if I was going to dive into the job search pool with everybody else.
Yeah.
And the thing that I felt ashamed about was this huge like flood of self-doubt around the fact that I hadn't built my business up to the point where I felt like I was, quote unquote, ready to step into it full time.
Mhm.
And I was, again, ashamed of the fact that I had been talking about wanting to do that
Mhm.
for well over a year at that point. I'd been talking about how I wanted to exit the full-time job, which, to be fair, wasn't terrible. It was fine, but, I'm not in the business of fine, right? Like I want extraordinary.
Yeah.
And that's what I work with people on to do, right, in my coaching. And yet here I was going, I don't know. I feel like I'm failing as a business person. I should be, I should. Like I shoulded all over myself. I kept saying I should have been further along. I should have been more successful. I should have had better systems in place. And for me, that was the thing
Yeah.
that I felt just so down on myself about.
Mm.
And ultimately, what I realized and what I came to have clarity about was that this was the fork in the road where I had to get really honest about whether or not I was truly committed to this path of what I'm passionate about, helping others and building my coaching practice so that I can impact the lives of the people that I feel called to help. Or am I going to let my fear and my doubt run the show
Mm.
and pull me back into the default path that's more traditional and more predictable? Yeah, safe-ish, psychologically safe, I suppose,
Sure.
because we know it's not stable, right? Um, but that's what it was for me. It wasn't what I expected. I thought I was going to feel the shame of being unemployed.
Mm.
And what it really was a realization that I wasn't quite where I thought I ought to be and wasn't giving myself enough grace for the fact that I'm a coach first and a business person second. And that's a whole different skill set that I was still mastering and still am. I'm still learning stuff every single day. Um,
I am
so yeah.
so glad you brought that up because that is very relatable for especially high achieving women and where we're used to like what exactly is the rule book and I'll do it. And both of us have PhDs and like getting a PhD is very challenging.
Mhm.
And yet psychologically there is that sense of if you do these things, you and work hard to do these things, you will get a PhD. And then so in something that is so creative, like your business where it's your heart's work, and there's a little bit less of a rubric because people like business coaches might give you a rubric or might give you milestones, but there's still no guarantee at the end of what the result is because it's more of a co-created dance with the universe and with your clients. And having that feeling of I should be further along. I the number of friends and clients and times that I've said that myself, I should be further along. If only I had done this last year, I would have set myself up, and how that can become its own riptide. So I'd love to spend a little bit of time on that of how did you address that feeling to still be able to move forward? Is there a risk of that feeling then like creating more of a stall because then it's harder to take action in the present moment if it feels like I should have already been there? But tell us more about that.
Yeah, so there's two aspects to that. One is that inner voice,
Yeah.
and how much credence we give it.
Mhm.
And I think that one of the things that really helps when it comes to acknowledging it, because we can't get rid of the voice. It's always going to be there in some degree, but it's about recognizing that it's there. It's really trying to protect us, right? It's not trying to hurt us. It's just trying to keep us safe. And then choosing to do the scary thing anyway. I think that when you're really clear about what it is that you want, and more importantly, why it is crucial that you do it,
Yeah.
then it's easier to say, thank you for trying to keep me safe,
Hmm.
but you don't get a vote.
Hmm.
That makes it easier. And one thing that I've always been clear about is that I'm here to do something bigger and more important than showing up every day and like getting a paycheck for it.
Hmm.
Like I'm meant to do something more than that. And however long it takes, whether or not I actually get there, that's not the point. It's the journey that matters. It's that I make progress. I don't care how far the progress is. Just making the progress is the win as far as I'm concerned. Um, and so for me, like having that clarity of vision about what it is I want and what I wasn't willing to compromise in order to, you know, to feel safe, like that was really important. The other factor that really helped me was that I had a coach.
Yeah.
Like I, I'm a mindset coach. I'm a mental fitness coach, but it's a mindset coach basically, right? I work with mindset coach because you can't read the label when you're inside the box, right? And so even someone like me who helps people like see connections and perspectives that they can't see themselves because their blind spots are hidden, I need someone to do that for me. And so I was fortunate at the time that I was working with a fantastic coach. And the day that I got the email that the mysterious email that like, oh, you have a meeting with HR this afternoon,
Yeah.
we all knew, right? Um, I was like, I need to talk to you, right? And when I was expressing all of these concerns and the doubts, and I did my own little freak out by myself so that I had kind of felt my emotions and let them, because that's the other thing where we mess up, right? It's like we avoid our emotions and they get stuck, and then we feel that stress and that tension. So
Yeah.
I let myself just have a quiet freak out, let the
Yeah.
emotions move through, and I was in a much calmer place, even though I was still scared. But when we were talking and I was shitting on myself, he did the best thing possible and was like, so you should be further ahead. Yeah. He's like, what race are you in? Who are you competing against? Like, what are the metrics that you're like evaluating yourself against? And I was like, oh, you mean
Mm.
the ones I'm just making up arbitrarily? And he's like,
Mm.
yeah. And it sounds really basic, but sometimes we need just that little like reality check to
Mm.
point out that we're making up stuff to
Mhm.
make ourselves stressed or to validate the fear voice.
Yeah.
And but it's all just made up. And
Mhm.
if we're making it up, then we're allowed to make up something else,
Mm.
you know? And
Wow.
the question became not like, why aren't you where you think you need to be yet? But it's, where do you actually want to go?
Mm.
And that was the reminder I needed. Oh yeah, I have a vision. I have a thing. Now I have more time. Now I have more space. This is an opportunity for me to go, oh, that thing I was spending 5, 6 hours a day like working on that was kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. That's gone now. Woo, I have all this free time. Like just those sorts of reframes. I'm making a little light of it because I find it helpful to kind of laugh at the absurdity of how we get so serious about these things. And
Mhm.
that's how I lightened the feeling as well. It was literally just laughing about it. And I'm like, oh, you're right. When I look at it from this perspective, I have so much more time now. I have all of the autonomy that I had been asking for. I've actually been given everything from the universe that I had asked for. It just didn't look like how I thought it was going to look.
Mhm.
And it's on me to make the best of it,
Mhm.
you know? So that's what happened.
That is so beautiful. And I'm wondering the the idea of, holding time constant, energy is energy. So this is one of the theories driving this whole series. And so let me know if this fits in or not. But the idea that energy is energy and shame energy is not something that can necessarily be like cut out, where a lot of us would like to remove that part of us, but instead with awareness and with other like reframes that you've talked about for you, with awareness, that energy can be mobilized for your own good, for your own benefit. And would you say that that happened for you where the shoulds with that awareness of like, oh, this is just a story that I'm telling, did that same should energy turn into, oh no, I have the space to create what I want?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about it, that shame feeling is heavy,
Yeah.
and if you wanted to extend the metaphor, it's dragging you down.
Yeah.
It's literally dragging you down because it is keeping you from moving forward and making progress towards whatever it is that you want and becoming who it is that you want to be.
Hmm.
And so you're right, like redirecting that energy through shifting how you're viewing the circumstances or how you're judging yourself, whether or not you're judging yourself,
Hmm.
you can move that energy and shift it so that it becomes a force for forward motion
Hmm.
instead of being a weight that's holding you back.
Hmm.
And again, this is one of those things that it's easy to talk about conceptually, but it's so important to practice it and to learn how to do it. It's not super hard. It just requires repetition. That's
Yes.
that's really what it is. It's about noticing when your energy is heavy, whether that's a shame story or something else, or you're in a situation that just drains you. Like that's a lot of things, our environment is a thing
Sure.
that definitely affects us. But whatever it is, when you're in the situation where you're feeling that heaviness, learning to just notice it is a big first step because oftentimes we're so accustomed to it that we don't even realize it's there half the time.
So true.
Yeah.
So, what was this is kind of like a two-part either or question. If you either want to share your experience or even clients' experience with what what does that repetition look like of shifting the story where it's not just like, oh, I need to put an affirmation out that I not that I should have done it, but that like here I am now, where we can try to talk ourselves into things
Hmm.
as opposed to like really addressing the energy and shifting it. So if you can share like what works for you and what works for your clients of really being able to make that shift. I know
Hmm.
you said step one is noticing it.
Yes, step one is
Yeah.
noticing it. And then step two is basically to do something different, right? Just in a nutshell. Here's the thing about affirmations. I love affirmations.
Yeah.
However, affirmations alone are not sufficient to
Mhm.
drive change.
Mhm.
But they can be really useful as a tool to remind us of what it is that we want or how we want to be showing up. But the key factor is to change the behavior.
Mhm.
Shift the way that the reason I talk about shifting the perspective is because our beliefs inform the way that we think about things, and the thoughts that we have inform whether or not we take certain actions. And so ultimately, all of this is leading towards how do we change the behaviors that we have? How do we change what we do?
Mhm.
or in some cases, whether or not we even do a thing,
Yeah.
so that we get closer to what it is that we want. And so when it comes to this sort of thing, noticing is the first step. And if you need affirmations or mantras to remind you, by all means use them, but recognize that these are just reminders and that it's still on you to then take the conscious effort to do something different. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be, a thing that's going to fix all of it. I think that's where we get into, we try to make it too complicated, right? But just think about it from the perspective of like, okay, well, if I didn't have this, not if I made it go away or I never felt shame, but like if I was looking at it through the lens of how I'd like to be showing up, um, what would I do differently?
Mm.
And then allow yourself to explore that and then pick one of those actions and then do them, And that's the kind of repetition that really builds that muscle because what you're doing is you're breaking the habit that you've developed of of listening to the fear or listening to the shame and then acting accordingly. I
Mm.
want you to recognize that that voice is still there and go, okay, cool, but I'm still in charge and I get to do something different and I want to, therefore I will.
Mm.
You start to train that over and over again so that you don't automatically give in to whatever the story is that the shame is trying to get you to buy into.
What does it feel like when you do start to shift and take those sometimes micro actions or sometimes bigger actions that are in alignment with who you are, who you want to be?
It's a weird dichotomy, right? Because when you do things that are more aligned with who you are, it's sort of like when a bell chimes in perfect resonance and it's beautiful, right? Like you can hear the disharmony and then it's all perfect and everything feels in your body. Like I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right? Like you feel that because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, because there's something in you. Like
Yeah.
however you want to talk about it, if it's your higher self or your soul or God or whatever it is that you choose to describe it as, there's that part of you that knows without having words to explain or reason,
Mhm.
which us scientists don't like, right? Like
I
we still want to, but
know.
that part of us knows when we're acting in alignment with who we're meant to be, who we are when we're at our best.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so you'll feel that. And at the same time, the more reasoned part of our brain that uh, is more about the familiar and the I say comfortable, even though it's not comfortable. It's the you're used to it being this way.
Hmm.
Will feel discomfort because you're acting against the normal programming.
Hmm.
So you have both, and especially the first, in the beginning, because it's a new pattern. You're disrupting an old pattern and you're starting to replace it with a new one, which is why the repetition is really important.
Hmm.
Um, Over time, the discomfort part of it goes away as those old patterns start to atrophy. Because if you're not repeating the habits, they just kind of fade and you're replacing them with new ones. But it's the replacement that's the important part. You can't just turn off a habit, you need to replace it with something better. And so it's that willingness to go, I can feel it in my heart that this is the right way for me to be acting and to show up and to believe. And I'm going to lean into that when I feel that discomfort around like, but I'm not doing things the way I usually do. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. It's so exciting. And the way you're describing this too is like this is a process, and it's very helpful to have a community of support. And it may be right for people to have a coach as well. And I know that you have a community where you help people do this. And so tell us a little bit about for the people who are like really vibing with this and want to know more about what it's like to work with you. Tell us about anything you want to share around your community and your client experiences of how you can support people.
Yeah, so the folks that I work with are uh, I work with people who struggled with the same kinds of things that I struggled with earlier in my career. So that's where that comes from. This is all
Yeah.
based on experience and based on seeing that people that are in my tribe, which are typically PhDs or highly educated folks, they tend to be more analytical and don't remember that we have an intuitive side, right? They've reached a point in their career where something's not quite right.
Hmm.
Either you've chased your skills and your experience without pausing to think, was this really the path that I want to be on? Or maybe you've just outgrown where you've been heading. You know, neither of them are right or wrong. That's just the experience that we tend to have, you know, because a lot of us when we were 5 or 10 years into our career, we're somewhere on a path that was based on a decision we made 10 years ago, and you're different people, you know. And so that can be a really challenging time because you're like, well, who am I? What do I want? And you may have never thought about that before.
Mhm.
So that's where folks are when I typically work with them. My approach is I'm not a career coach. Let's just make that really, really clear. Like I'm not about the resume writing or the interview tips and tricks. I believe that your career is a reflection of who you are.
Mhm.
And that when it is a reflection of who you are, that's when you're doing work that is meaningful to you, it makes an impact in the world, and it brings you a sense of joy and satisfaction that facilitates you having a life that you love. Because work is a big part of what we experience as part of this human life.
Mhm.
And so what I work with folks on is not so much the surface level job searchy stuff. It's more about getting clear about what they actually want in the absence of what they think they should do or what society has been telling them they ought to do, and learning how to listen to that part of them that knows but can't necessarily explain, learning to trust your gut a little bit more,
Mhm.
and really just, you know, design a career that is a reflection of you
Mm.
and show up and be who you are and feel, you know, grounded and good in that, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense because it's not the traditional default path that most of us have been on.
I love that. And for the listeners who are kind of well established in careers and maybe in 30s, 40s, 50s, but like, I don't really love this, but I have so much stock in it already. And then there's almost that like fear of instability, as you've mentioned, of doing something different. I would definitely encourage anyone in that boat to start to follow you, Jackie, because you talk a lot about that. But do you have any messages in particular for those people who are, especially those women who did make the decision of like, I think that this is going to be a path that brings me safety or brings me some sort of validation that I need to feel like I'm going to be taken care of or okay, which a lot of us do. But then there's that fear around like maybe I should have listened to myself sooner, but now it's too late. If you
Mm.
could address that.
It is never too late. Never, ever, ever. Like for the, you know, for what it's worth, I'm in my mid 40s
Mhm.
and I went to graduate school. I was almost 30.
Yeah.
You know, I started my business in my late 30s. Like I've reinvented myself multiple times, and part of that is just my journey. I'm not saying that reinvention is a thing that we all need to do,
Yeah.
but what I am saying is that if you feel like your work or your life doesn't, you don't fit into it anymore. You know, you're like it's too tight, it's too constricting, or just yeah, it just doesn't, it feels itchy or uncomfortable. You might have outgrown it. It might be time to consider what kind of a shift you need to make in order to start thriving again. And that doesn't look like any one thing. You know, I'm decision agnostic. Like that's one of those things. I'm not one of those people who's like, you need to have your own business or you need to do this. You need no, no, no. My job is to help you get clear about what it is that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
And whether that is changing jobs, whether that is starting a business of your own, whether that's just trying to figure out what it is about your current path that just doesn't fit anymore so that you can make an adjustment and thrive on your, you know, basically just a slight nudge or something. Like maybe you need to renegotiate the responsibilities you have, or maybe there's a part of you that wants to have a different set of responsibilities in your same field and you just haven't had the courage to articulate that or haven't been clear enough to know that that's the thing you want. You know, it's not about like quit your job, do a new thing. It is still a crossroads,
Mhm.
but it's an internal crossroads. It's not about the external circumstances.
Mm.
Those are going to vary from person to person.
Mhm.
Um, and what I really start with everybody is helping them get clear about what that looks like for them. Because
Mhm.
once you're clear about what it is that you need, the rest of it's kind of straightforward. You just make a plan and then, you know, do the
Yeah.
plan. So,
Love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your gifts with this audience and even more broadly, and being a part of Shame to Shine. It's such a pleasure, as always, talking to you.
yeah, likewise, it's always lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Take care.